The scene opens with the proud magician Shin Hale striding confidently down a desolate corridor to face a massive monster and end it all once and for all. He summons a spell so enormous that it's visible for miles across the mountain range. The magic he conjures is nothing short of extraordinary, and with a single command he freezes everything in its path, including the monster, which is instantly turned to ice. High is a boy once seen as a misfit who couldn't even wield magic properly, but now look how he has changed his fate, rising above the stigma to become a badass magician like no one's ever seen. In order to see how he achieved such a feat, let's hit the pause button and rewind a bit. This story revolves around the House of Mages, Korea's most prestigious magic family. Even within a family of geniuses, the third son was called an extraordinary prodigy until his title as prodigy didn't last as long as expected. One day Hyle meets with his proud father, to whom he promises he'll achieve results worthy of their esteemed house. He vows to graduate as the top student from Obelisk Academy of Magic and become the world's greatest AR mage, leading the House of Mages to new heights. His father then reminds him that he possesses a talent surpassing even his brothers and a gift that no one else can match. He has high expectations, confident his son will stand at the pinnacle of AI magic and prove it at the very summit of magical arts. With a determined smile, Hyle assures his father that he'll live up to these expectations without fail in his quest to become the greatest mage in the world. Hyle is determined not only to surpass his brothers but also to one day surpass his father, who holds the title of the most renowned mage in the country. 2 years have passed since that promise, and now we find ourselves staring at the magnificent Obelisk Academy of Magic, a prestigious institution. Inside the academy, an instructor is briefing the second students, reminding them that today is the practical exam. First up is Beak. The instructor tells him not to be nervous and just perform like he usually does, but judging by this guy's face, it's clear that the word nervous isn't even in his vocabulary. In fact, this guy is oozing overconfidence and is also a total jerk, the kind who's going to keep our protagonist on edge throughout the exam. He has already started trash talking, claiming he's not worried about failing because the last place has already been claimed by Hale, who according to him is nothing more than trash since Hale can't even perform basic magic. It's a mystery to him how our boy even made it into the second year. He's a useless fool, a joke who can't do magic. You're probably wondering what this AI magic stuff is since it's come up again. Well, it's part of the modern age of magic, and you'll find out more soon enough. The test begins and 2 holographic beasts appear immediately. The cocky guy Bake Sack confidently conjures up fireballs and throws them at the beasts, passing the test like it's no big deal. You see, modern magic evolved dramatically with the introduction of AI. All modern mages have AI chips implanted in their bodies, allowing them to cast spells easily without complex incantations, but our guy Hale is the only one who doesn't have this advantage. When it's finally Hay's turn, he tries to gather mana the old-fashioned way, pulling it into his heart and forming a magic circle through 8 steps in order to finally chant magic, but it doesn't work. He fails miserably, and the beasts charge at him right away. This scene is pure entertainment for someone like Beck Sack, who along with others in the class starts snickering and laughing at Hull's struggle. They call him a relic of the past, an outdated mage who can't use AI, and they're convinced that a misfit like him has no place in magic. The holographic beasts vanish as Hyle exceeds the time limit for the beast subjugation test, leaving everyone laughing at his defeat. All he can do is sit there feeling pathetic over yet another miserable attempt. Still, there's a glimmer of satisfaction in him because his mana conversion time is getting faster, a small but meaningful sign of progress. When Hyle was labeled an AI misfit, his father abandoned any expectations for him, even sending him a drug to destroy the mana circle in his heart. But Hyle refused to give up on his dream. Instead, he chose traditional magic implementation as his breakthrough, a forgotten method that requires master of mana without AI. The downside is that traditional magic can only be studied through old rare books. When Hyle returns to his room, a mountain of books is piled up everywhere, but there's still more to come and he's not sure where he's going to store all of them. He thinks to himself, if only these outdated magic textbooks were available as ebooks, as there's no more room for these old stacks. Then his eyes land on a particular book that stands out among the rest. He doesn't remember buying it, so out of curiosity he picks it up and flips it Open quickly scanning through the pages. The book looks ancient, fragile, and the handwriting inside is so worn that he can barely make sense of it, but there are a few words he recognizes, and the first one is Rabel Vittner. The name sounds familiar, like something he's heard of long ago. You see, Rabel Vittner was the first great mage of humanity, the first emperor of the magic empire Vittner, and the founder of all magic. When Heil was younger, he used to read about him in biographies, fascinated by the legend. Suddenly the book begins to glow and the light intensifies until reaches a brightness that Heil can barely tolerate. Unable to bear it any longer, he drops the book, startled by the sudden burst of energy. The book suddenly speaks. It tells our boy that he shares the same essence as Vonner and that this book has been left specifically for him. Heil stands there completely confused by what's happening. He has no idea how to react to this. But this was a big day for him, a day which changed his life entirely. And he came to know about it later. You see, in the present moment he did not really understand that being labeled a misfit was actually his fortune. Those who failed the practical exam were required to attend supplementary classes, and embarrassingly enough Heol was the only one who failed. Now the boy, who could do nothing but endure in his helpless state, is about to experience a rebirth, a new beginning. The next day arrives and students are scattered around the cafeteria chatting and having lunch. Meanwhile Heil is sitting alone at a table quietly eating. A guy approaches him and asks why he's eating alone again. It's clear this isn't the first time Heil has seen this ponytailed guy, who seems friendly enough not to bother with asking permission before plopping down at his table. This guy is Juchan. Despite looking a bit clueless, he's actually a pretty skilled magician, ranking in the top 10 at the academy and managing to form 3 magic circles. By the age of 18, Suchan even tries to steal a bite of Hai's food, making Hai a bit annoyed as he tells him to eat his own. Honestly though, this little back and forth is one of the few reasons Heil can actually call this guy his friend in an otherwise pretty miserable school life. Suchan even assures his friend that if anyone's bullying him, he just needs to let him know and he'll take care of it. That's when Heil reveals to his friend that he found a strange book yesterday. Suchan is intrigued at the mention of the book and asks about it. Heil explains that it's an unusual book on Rabel Vonner, but after page 3 all the pages are blank. He thinks it might just be other kids messing with him. He goes on to describe how when he opened the book it glowed with light and he could hear a voice. Suchan is amazed that someone might have gone as far as using magic to prank him. He asks Heil what the book said. Hai tells him mentioned something about passing down magic to a successor, and that he wouldn't have even been able to open it without sharing the same essence as the author. Suchan's interest is piqued and he insists on trying out this strange book himself, but it seems like there's a crucial detail Heil hasn't shared with his friend, and he finally admits that the last page of the book tells him he must at least die once. He goes on to explain that the book wants him to create a mana circle not in his heart but in his brain, which is technically a suicide. Suchan is now seriously annoyed to hear this, because telling someone to form a monic circle in the brain is basically like telling someone to die. It's absurd. Suchan is more curious than ever and he wants to personally see this book. The night has descended and we find ourselves at the Obelisk Academy student dormitory, where Heol finally shows Suchan the book he's been talking about. Heol tells him to try opening it. Suchan does so. He pours everything he has got, but the book doesn't react at all, not even a hint of magic. He eventually gives up, and that only confirms what Heil had told him before, that the book really can only be used by someone who shares the same essence as Rabel Vitter. Suchan even wonders if there's some sort of spell at play, but after a moment of contemplation he decides it's not worth it and drops the subject, brushing off the whole thing as nonsense. He walks out, leaving Hai alone with the mysterious book. As Heil opens the book he does so effortlessly, which only deepens the mystery surrounding it. Then something strange catches his eye. A page that had been completely blank before is now filled with words. Rabel Vittner's voice calls out to him once again through the book, reminding Heil that trying to use magic by creating a mana circle in the heart is a natural thing to do. It's what ordinary people would do, but if our boy wants to become Vittner's disciple, he must destroy the mana circle in his heart and instead create a mana circle in his brain. Just as the words fade, golden energy begins to shimmer above his head. A yellow outline of his brain appears glowing in the light, as if something ancient and powerful is awakening within him. Rabel Vittner's voice echoes again, urging Heil to open the book once more. By now he's sure this is far too extreme for a prank, especially since it keeps insisting he create a mana circle in his brain. You see, even though mana is the source of magic, it's also a poison to the brain. If mana enters the brain it can cause mental breakdowns and in the worst-case scenario lead to brain death. This puts Hyle in a serious dilemma, and he feels like he's being told to just throw his life away. Frustrated, he tosses the book aside, grabs his blanket and goes to sleep, hoping a new day will bring some clarity. The next morning he decides to take the book to the teacher, hoping they might recognize it or know more about its origins. As soon as the teacher grabs the book, he can immediately notice the ancient text and feel of the book. The teacher asks if Hale wants him to examine the book, and Hyle nods, asking if he could check whether the book might be sealed with magic. The teacher looks curious and asks why he thinks that. Hale explains that there have been strange rumors circulating among the students lately. The teacher gives him an unsatisfied look, reminding him that focusing on rumors isn't beneficial to his studies. Still, he promises to examine the book but advises our boy to concentrate on his academics. After carefully inspecting the book, the teacher finally tells him that there are no traces of magic on it. He hands the book back, telling him to put aside ghost stories and focus on his studies. Hale takes the book and walks back to his dorm, feeling a bit disappointed. He'd hoped to unravel some of the mystery, but it's only gotten stranger now that even the teacher couldn't open it yet. This also sparks a new thrill in him, because if even a skilled teacher couldn't unlock its secrets, maybe this book is the real deal. After all, he gets back to his room and spends a long time thinking everything through. Eventually he picks up the medicine. His father had sent him the pills meant to end his practical training and push him to focus solely on studying magic theory. Taking them would destroy the mana circle in his heart. Though he has no intention of giving up on magic, he knows he has to do this if he's to pursue the true path laid out by the mysterious book. His hands tremble uncontrollably. As he stares down at the pills lying in his palm, he reminds himself that his life is already a mess anyway, so what does it matter if this attempt kills him? With a determined sigh, he finally pops the pills into his mouth, fully prepared to risk death in his quest to awaken the mana circle in his brain. As the pills make their way down, a searing pain erupts in his chest. He feels the mana circle linked to his heart shattering. It's the death of his past self. As a mage fighting through the agony, he pushes mana into his brain, attempting the forbidden circulation method. It is at this moment his old self will die and a new mage will be born. As the mana begins to flow through his brain, the pain slowly fades away. The pain truly had him thinking that he is going to die. That same familiar voice of Rabble Veeder fills his ears, asking if he, the sole successor, can hear his voice. But it's not just Rael's voice, there's another voice, one made of mana. The elements such as light, darkness, wind and earth seem to dance and whisper around him, existing in harmony with mana. He hears the voice laugh, sing and bless him as if welcoming him into a new existence. The next morning arrives and the sunlight leaking through the windows wakes Hyle up. He sits back and looks at himself to see if he is dead or alive. As he looks around, he notices the book laying nearby. He grabs it and to his amazement the blank pages begin to fill with words. Once again Rabble Vittner's voice echoes in his mind. Once more it congratulates him for taking his first step. The ancient mage goes on to say that the book before him indeed bears his name, and that from this moment forward it will also be the start of Hy's legend. This book holds all of Rabble Veeder magic, and now as his true successor, Hale is not only heir to this ancient magic but also the disciple of this ancient mage. The speech from Rabble Vittner fills Hyle with a boundless joy, his heart swelling with excitement. Several days have passed since that moment. While the teacher is delivering the lecture, Hale is lost in thought, his attention focused on his newly acquired ancient book. To his delight, he notices that another page has appeared. He hadn't realized how thrilling learning magic could be. So much knowledge lies dormant within these pages. He learns that mana possesses its own will, and for most people, when mana enters the brain, the clash between their will and mana leads to brain damage. That's why mana acts as a poison to the brain. However, Hale realizes his mind seems to block mana's will. This is why he resists the interference of AI chips that affect brain functions. The teacher grabs everyone's focus again and reminds them about the upcoming midterm evaluations for second-year students this year. However, there's a new rule: any student who fails to meet the standards will be expelled. These are the absolute words, and no exceptions will be made. The teacher explains that this new rule was personally proposed by the head of the House of Mage. A murmur starts among the students. As the tension in the air grows thicker, they're all probably thinking about The worst possible outcome. Bake Sok is grinning ear, clearly excited about finally getting the chance to clean up the trash at the academy. Even the teacher is chuckling with a sadistic smile, clearly enjoying himself after seeing the tension among students. It's no surprise that all the students are directing their frustration toward one person, and that is our boy. They want him to be kicked out of this place, but Hai is lost in his own thoughts, unaware of the brewing storm around him later. After school, as he's walking through the city's metropolis, he passes by a commercial spot called AR Training Center. He doesn't really want to go in though, because the rental fees for the simulation training there are ridiculously high, which is around 200,000 won per hour, but in the end he goes in anyway. The attendant greets him warmly and H decides to book an hour for himself. The attendant asks if he's going alone, to which Hai responds positively. The attendant slides the pass toward H and tells him to head to room 14 for instructions on using the hologram devices, but Hyle just grabs the entry pass and casually says he already knows how to use them. As he walks away, it doesn't take long for the attendant to realize that this guy is Hale, the son of the Shin family, a noble who's known for being unfit for AI. Once Hyle enters room 14, he starts the training. A bunch of holographic beasts appear surrounding him from every direction. The monsters growl at the sight of him, but Hyle just extends his hand ready to obliterate them. These creatures might be low-ranking monsters, but taking on 10 of them at once is no easy feat. The average academy clear time for the Wolf Challenge is 12 minutes and 33 seconds, but Hyle is practicing the techniques written in the IDD book every day, so there's no better way to test his progress. He activates his new mana circle, conjures magic, and throws it at the charging beasts. The water magic splashes down, taking all of them out in one go. Ha feels a sense of pride for pulling it off, though he's still in disbelief if all this power is his own. While most wizards circulate their mana circles through their hearts to use AI magic, Hyle can circulate his mana through his whole body, including his brain, all thanks to the infinity circle. His suppressed magical power has finally been unleashed. Hyle then conjures up this massive spell that completely overwhelms him. He's buried in the sheer force of it all. That's when Rabble Veter speaks to him, telling him not to be surprised by something like this. He still has a long way to go. The Infinity Circle is just the foundation of Bono-style magic, which is all about controlling magic with the images formed in your mind. This is just the first step, the first book of Bait Neo-style magic known as the Heart's Intent. After that intense experience, Hyle finally walks out of the training center. The attendant decides to clean up room 14 and get going home, but then he gets a bit curious. He checks the score of the fallen genius who just used room 14 to train. His smug smile quickly fades when he sees that Hyle completed the Wolf Challenge in 6 minutes and 37 seconds, a time that's nothing short of international competition level. In disbelief, he kicks his machine because he is certain that it's broken. There's no way someone who's unfit could set a record like this. My guy, on the other hand, is just walking down the street feeling confident. This is only the beginning of a legend where he's the protagonist. He reflects back on how when he first formed the Infinity Circle it was a real struggle. The techniques in ID's book were completely different from the magic he had learned up until now. He learns through the book that mana is like one's arms, legs, heart and mind, all of them moving as one at will, but Hyle has no clue what any of this really means. Trying to find enlightenment from such vague words is tough. It feels like there's a thought hidden behind a transparent curtain and he can almost grasp it, but not quite. In magic studies they call this the wall of enlightenment. It's the point where magicians confront the limits of their power, and this has been true in every era. Hai also decides that for now he'll focus on circulating mana through his entire body as written in IED's book, but even then he's not sure if that's really enough. By the time Hale regained his focus, he realized he had been circulating mana for 10 hours straight. Normally it would be exhausting enough to make him pass out, but strangely it didn't feel that way. He is feeling a little bummed out that it's already morning, since he wanted to practice more. As he makes his way toward the academy from the dormitories, he bumps into his friend such and gives him a cheerful pat on the back and asks why he looked so wiped out today. Suchin might not know it, but constantly being aware of mana circulation isn't easy. Hale wants to get used to his mana circle quickly so he can use it skillfully. When he achieved the second circle at 12 years old, they called him a prodigy, and his father had high hopes for him, but now the best he can manage is the first circle in his brain's mana circle, and he has no idea what the best path forward is. He knows that breaking the wall of enlightenment is crucial to advancing in magic, and Hai remembers his father telling him this when he still had high expectations for him as a child. His father believed that perfection is just a chain that holds you back, and it's also a lie born from human arrogance. And now Hale has come to believe that perfection really is a lie, and he wants to focus on growth and freedom in order to advance his abilities. As he sits down concentrating, he can feel it, the mana flowing through his arms and legs, in his heart and mind moving as he wishes imperfection, and a free imagination is the thing that makes the instant spellcasting, where you do not even need an incantation. AI magic relies on shortened incantations to activate spells, and while that method is consistent, the approach he is using is totally different. The approach he has is all about freeing one's thoughts, creating a spell that can change shape freely, a spell that ignores the algorithmic structure of magic formulas. This is pretty exhausting physically, but he still can't believe he's actually using such impossible magic. He feels like he's breaking past the wall of enlightenment, reaching toward greater heights. The next day at the academy, the teacher informs Hale that he has a visitor and tells him to follow. The mention of a visitor confuses his H, but he follows his teacher anyway. The teacher explains that the visitor is actually his father, who's come to see him. Once they finally reach the drawing room, the first thing we see is his father. The teacher tells the man that he has brought his son. The father turns and meets his son's gaze. The teacher decides to leave, and soon after both father and son sit down for a heart-to-heart conversation. His father seems disappointed since Hai is still sticking with the academy. It means he hasn't taken the medicine his father sent him, but Hai tells him that he's recently made progress with his magic. The father doesn't seem too motivated or excited to hear this. He asks him if he is still wasting his time chasing a hopeless dream that's out of his reach. Hale agrees right away, but his dream is not a hopeless one, and he is determined to become a grand magician who will lead this era. The boldness in his son's response finally catches his father's attention, but the father reminds him that he's already wasted a lot of time and that it's time to face reality. He reminds Hale that no matter how hard he works now or what he accomplishes in the future, as long as he rejects AI magic, he will never become a proper magician. However, he acknowledges Hai's unique talent and suggests that if he gives up on these pointless ideals and studies magic theory properly, even as a misfit, he can still make use of his talent. But Hale repeats his words again, making it clear that he won't give up on his magic. He doesn't want to live an ordinary life or rely on his father's family name. What he wants is to become the next head of the Mid-Shin family. His father sternly reminds him that becoming a grand magician or the head of the Mido-Shin family isn't something that can be achieved with ambition alone. Hale just smiles and states that he's going to prove it. The head of the family frowns and asks if Hale is talking about barely meeting the academy's verification standards and avoiding expulsion. Hale responds confidently, assuring his father that in the upcoming midterm test he will place within the top 10. If he fails, he promises to leave the academy and devote himself to studying magic theory as his father suggested, but if he succeeds, he wants his father to acknowledge his talent as a magician and pledge his full support. The head of the family palms his face, wondering where all the source of Hai's unwarranted confidence is coming from. He doesn't say anything else, just stands up to leave. But before walking out, he makes it clear that Hai better not disappoint him with a meaningless accomplishment. A few days later, the teacher called all the students for an announcement. He tells them that they'll be revealing the method for the upcoming test. The students start murmuring among themselves, wondering if it's going to be a one-on-one duel or maybe a monster extermination exam, but the teacher clears up the confusion when he reveals that this time the test method will be a single elimination tournament. In other words, it's going to be a duel. The test will take place over 3 days, starting from the round of 16. External businesses and members of the Magic Tower will be allowed to attend as spectators. The teacher tells everyone to do their best. My guy is totally pumped up because this is finally his chance to show off what he's truly capable of. Later, the news of the tournament spreads among all the students and everyone is talking about it. Hale can't help but notice the buzz and excitement around the midterm verification presentation. If the Magic Tower is attending, it'll even get media attention. The Magic Tower is basically an organization of 12 high-class magicians worldwide, holding power equivalent to a nation. Every academy student dreams of joining this prestigious group. Suddenly a familiar disgusting voice calls out to Hale, calling him a defect and asking how his condition is. You can tell by the disappointment and annoyance on Hai's face that just seeing this guy is enough to ruin his mood. We already know this guy as Baek Suk, but what you didn't know is that he's an upper-class student ST in his second year. Despite his status, he's insufferable. Sak breaks the news to Hyle that they'll be opponents in the first match of the midterm evaluation. He is totally feeling full of himself and is sure that Hai's screwed. He looks deeply into Hai's eyes and declares that he's going to get proper revenge for what happened 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, when they were younger. Hyle defeated Sak miserably in the Junior Magic Tournament finals. That victory earned H the title of Loner Wizard from the world. When Sak found out that H was an AI misfit, he started harassing him relentlessly. Sak, still cocky as ever, tries to throw another jab at our boy. He reminds our boy about the teacher announcement that anyone who doesn't meet the standards in this midterm evaluation will be expelled. Sak's looking forward to beating the crap out of Hyle until he's expelled, and he laughs as he imagines Hyle getting crushed, defeated and crying. But my guy sees this as the perfect opportunity to shut this arrogant guy up for good. He's ready to show Sak who's truly at the bottom of the barrel. Hale sassily reminds Sak that he's the one who's going to suffer a loss. Sak gets visibly annoyed at his confidence, and you can tell it's really getting under his skin. He starts chuckling and his laugh catches the attention of the other students too. He's sure Hyle must be stupid for challenging him like this, so he asks if our guy hit his head or something, because someone like him who is defective couldn't do jack. My guy lets out a tired sigh because it looks like he has to respond to this cocky sucker just to shut him up. So with a sassy jab he reminds the loudmouth that he hasn't changed one bit in all these years, because he is still just as loud as he was 5 years ago. Well, that's enough to shake this bully to his core, but my guy keeps pushing his buttons. Finally Sak loses all patience. He grabs Hyle by the collar aggressively, but my guy stays as cool as a cucumber and yanks that filthy hand away. He makes it clear that someone as stupid as Sak would never understand this, because even a fall can only happen to someone who was once on top, and once a genius would always be a genius, and my guy is ready to prove this. With that, Hale starts walking away while Sak is left biting his nails, feeling rattled by the unwavering confidence Hale exuded. But Sak's ready to grind him down and burn him to ashes. The next day our boy is all over the academy's forums and social media, with everyone asking if the once fallen genius can rise back to the top. Watching the news, Hale feels smug and confident, glad to be at the front page of internet gossip. He is sure that this article must be published by Suk in order to humiliate him and his family name. Sak's family holds a lot of influence, so it wouldn't have been hard for that bastard to find a journalist willing to write an article for him too, and given how arrogant Sak is, Hull's sure he is the one who has done this. But this article is also a blessing in disguise for our boy. With the midterm evaluations coming up, everyone's expecting the prodigy to return. The more eyes the public has on him, the better it is for him. Just then his phone rings and it's his father. Hale picks up, telling his old man that he's already seen the article. He further reassures his dad that there's nothing to worry about because he's going to live up to his reputation. His father asks if he has arranged everything, to which Hyle agrees, saying he's already provoked Sak. Shock to draw the public's attention, the head of the family then breaks it to Hale that the reason he accepted his proposal wasn't because he trusted him, but because there was no risk to the Shin family. His father still doesn't have any expectations for him to win. He warns that the article could bring shame to the family and it doesn't make sense to let it stay out there on the internet. But Hyle responds to his father saying the public already believes he was expelled from the Shin family. Even if he were to bring disrace, the impact on the family would be minor. His father reminds him that the impact may be small, but it's not non-existent. He then asks if H understands that wherever he goes the Shin family's name will follow him. Hale agrees with this, but he's confident that considering the potential gains he believes it's worth it. His father is not sure what kind of gains he is talking about, so asks what these gains are and how they would benefit the family. Hale confidently declares that the biggest gain for the family would be himself. He'll become the world's greatest magician produced by the Shin family and the strongest head in the family's history, which means that he is the biggest gain the Shin family could have. The father comically points out that with all Hull's confidence it almost seems like he's already surpassed the Tower Master. Our boy just smiles and responds with his usual cool tone. The head of the family then decides to leave everything in his son's hands, but not before giving one final warning: if Hale brings disgrace to the family despite all his talk, he'd better be prepared for the consequences. With that, the father ends the call on a rather sweet note. Hyle puts his phone back on the table, feeling more confident than ever, knowing the stage is set on the day of the midterm evaluation. The arena is packed with people and Hyle can be seen stretching his wrist, preparing for the challenge ahead. In front of Him stands his arch-nemesis Suk Shok, who's as cocky as ever. Feeling full of himself, Sok teasingly asks Hyle if he's read the article he had written commenting on how the so-called prodigy has already become a celebrity since day one. He continues to snicker and chuckle, saying he can't stop laughing just thinking about how ridiculous it'll look when Hyle loses without casting a single spell. But my guy got sass for days. He reminds Sayuk that he's the one who's going to lose here to really trigger Sok further. Hale thanks him for getting manipulated by him. Hale makes it clear that since they don't like each other he's going to end this quickly because he doesn't care about a nobody like Sok. Sahak replies just as smugly, clearly seething but still trying to maintain his cocky composure. Then Hai raises his index finger and declares Klar that he's going to defeat him with a one-circle spell. The stage is set and everyone gathered in the Obelisk Academy arena hears Hai's bold declaration reverberate through the air. Sok can barely contain his anger, and the humiliation of it all is starting to eat at him. He's triggered beyond belief. The referee whistles to grab everyone's attention and announces the commencement of the Obelisk Academy second-year midterm exam. Suk is the first to react. With the help of his AI, he impulsively throws a massive fireball at Hale, but my guy just tilts to the side, effortlessly dodging the attack as Sak prepares for his next move. The chip implanted behind his neck begins to react aggressively, clearly indicating that Sak isn't even trying to hold back this time. Sok prepares to throw a three-circle spell, aiming to end it all in one go. As he launches it, a massive burst of fire and smoke engulfs Hyle, and the entire arena holds its breath, thinking that this is finally it. Sok has defeated the once prodigy, but Sak's smug grin quickly fades when the smoke begins to clear, revealing Hyu ing completely unscathed, not a scratch on him. The bastard gets more and more annoyed and mad, and he just starts bombarding our boy with fireballs without even thinking about it. Hyle just conjures up some water and uses it as a shield to protect himself. This leaves the cocky jerk dumbfounded, unable to believe that his specialty spell explosion was neutralized like this. Some big shots in the private lounge find it strange because it's impossible to cast a spell that quickly, even if it's a first circle spell. The assistant standing next to the big shot asks why he'd cancel everything with the blue tower just to watch this student match. She asks if he knows anything about Shin-Hul's magic, to which he replies no, saying he's only read an article about the prodigy making a comeback and came out of curiosity to see it for himself. The assistant is surprised to hear it was just by chance, but even so she reminds him that if it's known that the blue tower's leader and an 8th circle mage came to watch a student's match, there would be a huge uproar. The guy admits that he knows that pretty well. After all, he is Kim Kangon, master of the Blue Tower and an 8th circle mage. This is the only reason they're standing in the private VIP lounge, just to make sure that no one notices them. But it looks like there's also another big shot entering, and when Kangon turns around he perks up to see a familiar figure, and I can tell without looking that it's our boy's father. Meanwhile, in the arena, my guy is just standing casually while his opponent is biting his nails in anxiety because not a single trick he's tried is working against this guy. What's making him even more anxious is that Hyle blocked his 3rd circle explosion magic with just a 1st circle water spell, and his casting speed is unnaturally fast. My guy then decides to rub salt in the wound by asking if he's curious about his casting speed. Of course, Sok has had enough of the humiliation and snaps again. He unleashes more firepower without thinking through any strategy. The moment he fires, we can't see what happens to our boy, but Sayuk is sure this time he's finally hit the nail in the coffin. All he gets though is my guy standing right in front of him, provocatively gesturing for him to come at him. Hyle then unleashes an attack of his own, and that wind spear whizzes past the bastard's right ear, barely missing him. He is now even more devastated and wants to know how Hai even cast a wind spear instantly. More than that, he's freaking out, wondering why none of the fire attacks even scratched him a little. By now he feels completely mocked, thinking Hale is pushing him to the edge with just a 1st circle spell, and my guy just doesn't even try to hide it and outright admits he does want to humiliate this bastard before defeating him. Once again our hero sends a wind spear at the bastard, but Sahak somehow manages to block the direct hit. Feeling a bit too proud of himself, Sayuk starts taunting Hale, telling him not to get ahead of himself just because he's got a little extra attack speed. But my guy is not here for Sak's nonsense, he's here to prove him dead wrong. Just as Sayuk is feeling smug, an unexpected spear comes crashing down from the sky, grazing Sak's arm badly, and the best part is that this bastard didn't even realize when Hyle cast that wind spear. Hyle casually raises a finger again, clearly about to pull off some more moves, while Sak Looks completely humiliated, too shaken to do anything. All he can do now is demand to know how Hale is pulling this off. Even Kangon is glued to the action in the arena, completely captivated. My guy is absolutely shredding Sook, and it looks like he's ready to go even further, daring this sucker to see what happens next. Honestly though, don't you think this fight is getting dragged on a bit? And yeah, Hale has gotten a little cocky. Hale then sends a flock of wind birds at Sack, leaving him totally baffled. It's almost impossible for a wind spear to have a double shot property, so he is not sure how this is even possible. Our boy quickly admits that he is right, since it's not supposed to work that way, but lets him know that he can do double shots as well. He tells the sucker to try blocking this time because he's about to send 4 simultaneous attacks. Sock quickly conjures up a barrier and finally manages to protect him from a direct hit. He even gets a glimmer of hope. It's not all doom and gloom. If he can block, he's still in the game. But right then, one of the wind spears maneuvers itself and hits him from behind while he's off guard. My guy does not let this chance get away to get under this bastard's skin. He reminds him that thinking is fine, but he should not stand there looking dazed at all. Hale reminds his opponent that the fight has only just begun, so he better prepare himself for the worst that's coming. Once again he sends his attack at this bastard, and the quickly takes a few steps back to create some distance, hoping to get out of the wind spear's range. You see, magic power and range are somewhat limited, so if Sock can create enough distance, those unpredictable attacks won't be able to reach him. Hale commends him for his quick thinking and admits that this is a good decision, but then he claps both hands and the wind spears still reach Sahak even from such distance. Kangon is left absolutely wide-eyed watching this. Not only is Hale casting spells instantly, but their trajectories also change and merge in midair. We then catch a glimpse of Hai's father, Lord Shin Inhyuk, the head of the renowned Mido Shin family and an 8th circle magician. Kangon then comments on how Hai's magic is clearly disregarding the rules of open source magic. You see, open source magic is like a reverse cutter. It has extra range, more speed, and can even change trajectory midway. However, it comes with strict limitations. For example, if the target is beyond 38 m, the spell can't reach them, and if the trajectory is altered once, it can't be altered again. In other words, open source magic operates strictly within its predefined effects. This is why modern mage duels often resemble a mental game. Each mage tries to predict the other's moves using known spells, and reacting flexibly is the key to victory, like using skills strategically in a game. But Rabel Wittner's style of magic, which Hale seems to have adopted, ignores the limitations of modern open source magic entirely, with that final blow landing perfectly. Sook is literally in shambles, yet it seems Sock still hasn't learned his lesson. He's in denial, refusing to accept that he's getting his ass handed to him by a first circle spell. Hale reminds his opponent that he's underestimating first circle spells too much. Even if Sock exhausts himself using third circle spells, all it takes to kill someone is a single pen. Of course, the doesn't really understand what this means, so Hole conjures up his water magic again. The water smoothly flows towards Sock, and a blob of it surrounds him from all directions, suffocating him. That's when Hale reminds him that a grand spell isn't necessary to end a life. The Academy's battle uniforms are protected by a safety barrier spell known as the Safety Zone, but right now it doesn't seem to be doing this trash any good. Even though my guy is just using single circle spell, the sucker just suffocates and the entire student body becomes eyewitnesses to H's victory. He then turns to the instructor, telling him that the results are pretty clear by now, but he wouldn't mind continuing the fight if necessary. But the instructor quickly blows the whistle, and with that the match is officially over. Shin Hai is hailed as the winner of this round. Some guys carry the defeated bastard out of the stadium, while my guy walks out on his own, heading out of that damned stadium. Hale can clearly feel the confidence that victory has brought him. It's a feeling he hasn't had in a while, and now it's returning as he steps into his role as a mage once again. Kangon and his assistant begin walking their own way since the battle is over, but this fight has left a permanent mark on Kangon's mind. He can't shake the thought that this prodigy has truly made his return. It has sparked even more curiosity about Hale, and now Kangon wants to know everything about him. Meanwhile, Suchin is absolutely thrilled to see his friend nail the duel. He's so excited he can barely contain himself. He wants to know everything about The kind of training Heil did, because honestly my guy is just an amazing magician. He's especially curious about that wind spear move and how the spells merged and unfolded midair. Sachin is practically dying to hear all the juicy details. Heil smirks and asks him if he is really that curious. Of course Sachin eagerly lends his ear, ready to soak up every word, but instead of spilling the beans, Heil decides to tease him. He leans in and says it's all a secret he can't tell, leaving his friend even more curious than before. Heil then pulls out his phone and shows something to his friend. Apparently it's breaking news going viral across the internet about his victory, with the headline "Prodigies return." The interview he did right after the match is already out. In the interview everyone's dying to know about the instant cast magic Heil showed them. They're all asking how he was able to cast magic so quickly, and how he altered or combined the wind spear's trajectory. That's when Kengan decides to butt in, promising to answer all these burning questions for them. The crowd exclaims in surprise as they see none other than the Lord of the Blue Tower, the Ice Demon King Kangon. The man reveals that he's watched Hai's recent match with great interest. He pulls our boy in closer and spins a story claiming that Hai must have used the fourth circle spell known as Memorize. The audience has no clue what that is, so Kangon demonstrates by producing fire in his palm, leaving everyone stunned and surprised. Kangon further explains that Memorize is a spell that allows anyone to prepare magic in advance and cast it instantly when needed. With Memorize, instant magic casting becomes possible. The audience then asks if this spell is so overpowered, why isn't everyone using it already? Kengan reveals that Memorize does have its drawbacks. It can only store spells 3 circles below the user's level. He then turns to Hale and asks if this is correct, all while pushing Hull's shoulder, basically telling him to play along with the story. Of course our boy plays along and agrees with everything. Kangon says, "You see, my guy had been wondering how he was going to explain Bner-style magic, and it seems Kangon just provided the perfect cover. I'm not sure why Heil is calling it Bohr-style magic instead of just referring to Rabel Veeder magic, but since he's using this term for now we'll stick with it." The interviewer then asks if this means that Hai's skill level is at 4th circle magic since he was using 1st circle magic so effortlessly. Kangon quickly agrees and also makes sure to add a convincing smile to sell the story. We then get another scoop. Being at the 4th circle level at such a young age is comparable to the records of the Tower Lords, and since the Blue Tower Lord himself has confirmed it, there's no room for doubt. Back in the present, Sachin curiously asks Hale if he's really a 4th circle mage, but before waiting for an answer he switches questions, saying what he's really curious about is how Hale is going to explain the rules of open source magic. To understand this we flash back to the past once again, where my guy decides to explain this to Kengan. He reveals that ignoring the rules of open source magic is surprisingly simple. All he had to do was modify the spell formula naturally. Kengan is completely mind blown because pulling off something like this should be impossible. You see, modifying a spell formula is like trying to add flight functions to a car, which is not exactly something you can do without a serious breakthrough. Kangon can't help but wonder what his future might have held if he weren't AI incompatible. Our boy then dramatically summons a swarm of butterflies and announces to everyone that from now on the modified spells will be called modification magic. Kayan is absolutely thrilled to hear this because it's nothing short of revolutionary. From that moment on it's clear the entire magic community is about to be shaken to its core, and Kengan is looking forward to seeing everyone's reaction. In the current moment, Sachin shoots a doubtful glance upon hearing the whole modification magic nonsense. He's not buying this at all, but Heil simply says that facts won't change whether he believes it or not. Sachin decides not to dwell on it and just brushes it off. He's glad he won and is ready to head back to the dorms. As he starts walking away, Heil asks if he's leaving already. Sachin just flashes a friendly thumbs up, saying he needs to prepare because he's facing a tough opponent tomorrow. The mention of a tough opponent piques Hai's curiosity, and I'm definitely curious too about who this tough opponent might be. The next day arrives and once again we find ourselves at Obelisk Stadium. Sachin is already having trouble standing still because his opponent is unusual. Apparently it's a girl, and judging by the riz and aura she is exuding it's clear that she's no pushover. Her name is Adela Stat, a prodigy born from the Stat family of France in Korea's House of Mystics, her magic is unlike anything Suchin has faced before thanks to the secretive moon element magic of the House of Mystics. As she unleashes her magic, Suchin is getting pushed back just in her presence alone. When she finally attacks, the shiny light bullets she fires easily bypass his barrier, hitting him directly after it's pierced. The referee quickly blows the whistle announcing Adela Stet as the victor of this round. The crowd is on the edge of their seats after witnessing such a powerful display. Even Heil is lost in his own thoughts. You see, her magic is a unique blend of light and dark elements shining with moonlight, a secret of magic passed down through the House of Mystic. Secret magic isn't registered in open source magic, meaning it's not classified in terms of range, distance, power, or features, so it's no surprise that Suchin got knocked out by her. Suddenly my guy feels a sharp gaze directed at him. He looks ahead and notices that it's Adela who is shooting him these intense glares. Later Suchin tends to his defeated friend, reassuring him that he performed really well. Despite the comforting words, Suchin can't help but curse his bad luck, wondering why it had to be Adela of all people. It feels like she's just standing right behind them. Meanwhile, Suchin asks his friend if he won his second match, to which Heil responds confidently with a positive answer. In that case, he reminds our boy that Adela is his next opponent, and as if on cue she appears behind both of them and casually mentions that she enjoyed their match earlier. It was a good fight. Suchin tries to stay humble, telling her that he learned a lot too, though we all know that his attitude wasn't quite so positive just a few minutes ago. Still, it's clear that the girl's more interested in Heil. Her little chat with Suchin seems like an excuse to get closer to him. She then addresses Shin Hail directly, not wasting any time, pointing out that he's finally returned to being a mage. She also mentions that's the exact reason she joined the academy and hopes he'll give her a tough competition, keeping her on her toes. You see, both the Shin family and the House of Mystics have known each other for a long time, so our boy is already acquainted with her even before enrolling. The Shin family and the House of Mystics have a good relationship, so Adela and he have had plenty of chances to meet at various events. If he were to describe his relationship with Adela in one word, it would be rivals. Adela even gave up studying in France and enrolled at Bisque just to surpass him, but ever since he was labeled as AI incompatible they haven't spoken once. Being marked as AI incompatible was a significant moment for our boy and a major blow for Adela, who lost her main rival. Then Heil finally responds to her, saying he's not worthy of her goal. The girl states that they'll see about that once they fight. Suchin asks if he's really prepared to fight her, to which our guy casually asks what he should be prepared for. Of course, this nonchalant and careless behavior gets under Suchin's nerves and he tries to snap our boy out of his bubble, reminding him that his next opponent is a Estat, so he's not sure why he's so unfazed. Naturally, this leaves Hale a bit puzzled, and his scream of disbelief echoes throughout the arena when he finally realizes what his friend meant. The day finally arrives, but it looks like only Adela has made it into the arena so far, and she's impatiently waiting for him to arrive. Students are starting to wonder why Shin Heil is still absent, with some even speculating that he must have chickened out and run away. They find it funny how he was all confident during the interview, rambling about how he was going to show his modified magic to the world, but it seems like it was just all empty talk. Even the referee seems to be starting to think that Heil might have bailed on the fight altogether, so the referee announces that since the time is up, Adela Stet wins by default according to the arena's rules. But just at that moment Hale comes running in completely out of breath and tells the referee to wait. He flashes a big smile and apologizes for being late. The attendant seems annoyed at him for taking so long, but decides to hear the explanation for his late arrival later. He then informs Heil that he won't be getting any time to catch his breath as a penalty for being late. Both contestants take their positions, and it seems like Adela is curious to know why he was late. Hale casually responds that it was nothing major, he was just preparing himself a little in advance. The girl seems intrigued to hear about the preparations he's talking about. Heil flashes a smile again and says that since she's undeniably strong he had to prepare himself to beat her. He's sure this is going to be one hell of a fight. Adela is quite startled that he prepared in just a day. It looks like he's not just empty talk. She can already see the difference between the Shin Hale she saw yesterday and the one standing in front of her now. They're two different people, and she wants to see his true power. As the magic swirls around him he challenges her to an all-out fight from the start. With that the match begins. The lady quickly conjures up her magic, casting a spell known as Flame Revolver. 3 magic circles shoot fire bullets simultaneously at Hale, but our boy doesn't just stand there and take it. He quickly uses his wind magic and blocks all 3 bullets at once. The lady then conjures up something called Earth Needle, and as the name suggests, it literally shatters the ground, creating cracks that trail toward Hale, but he quickly jumps into the air, narrowly avoiding the needles that shoot up from the ground. Seeing this, Adela takes the opportunity. Since he's in midair, it's nearly impossible for him to dodge her next attack. She quickly summons one of her spells, Arrow Impact. This leaves Hale wondering if she really plans to attack a defenseless guy in midair. She's confident he can avoid this attack, or at least that's what she thinks, but Hale quickly conjures up a barrier right under his feet, leaving Kangon stunned to see that he managed to create a defensive barrier magic while airborne. Even Adela is taken aback seeing that he flipped the barrier beneath him and used it as a platform to land. She's having a bit of deja vu as she realizes that Hale is still the same with that unique magical sense of his. Meanwhile, Hale is feeling confident. He's determined to do whatever it takes to counter the House of Mystic's secret moon element magic, and to make this happen he's even ready to drag the sun into this battle. As he channels his magic, the sun Adela begins to shine brightly, so bright that it becomes hard for her eyes to endure. She can sense the attack coming and knows she has to avoid it at all costs. Quickly she conjures up a great shield for protection. At the same time, Hale comes crashing down from above. A blade made of water forms in his hand and he strikes with precision and force, but Adela's defensive barrier holds strong, saving her from the full impact of his attack. Hale takes note of her caution. She's using a third circle defensive spell against his first circle magic, clearly not underestimating him. Her extra caution only fuels his resolve to show her what he's truly capable of. He slides backward while Adela braces herself for his next move, but before she can react, something bursts from the ground and grabs her feet, locking her in place. She glances down in surprise only to find out that it's an earthbind spell trapping her feet. She is definitely getting overwhelmed, and what is making this fight more hard for her is the fact that he is casting spells so fast that she can't even notice him. His movements are also so quick that her eyes can barely keep up. Hale uses his water magic again, casting a spell called Water Missile. Adela quickly starts burning away the earthbind that's holding her feet hostage. Meanwhile, Hale extends his hand toward the sky, then gestures toward her. Dolphins made of water race toward her with incredible speed. Adela responds by summoning her barrier magic to protect herself. She feels quite confident now, thinking she can handle him. After all, contrary to what she had initially believed, it seems she watched his interview where it was revealed that he was using the fourth circle spell. Memorize this spell can only activate lower circle spells, so even though Hale is a fourth circle mage, he can only use first circle spells right now. She believes this gives her an edge in the fight, as she's confident that first circle spells won't be enough to take her down. It looks like Adele is about to be proven wrong the hard way. A spear crashes down right behind her like a meteor, and the unexpected attack completely throws her off balance. She didn't even notice when he cast that, which makes her realize he must have been hiding a modified magic wind spear. That last attack is enough to exhaust her, and she finally collapses to the ground. Meanwhile, Hale stands triumphantly in front of her, asking if she's forgotten who she was up against. It seems this feisty cat might have been humbled after this defeat. Meanwhile, in the VIP lounge, Kangon's assistant watches in awe, witnessing Hai's battle instincts that are beyond anything she could have imagined. Kangon himself is just as astonished, realizing how Hai had planned everything from the moment he first dodged the Earth Needle attack by leaping into the air. He baited her attacks and used the barrier as a platform, climbing higher while shielding himself in the sunlight to block her sight. Then from Memorize, he set up a delayed wind spear. While descending, he used arrow to keep her attention focused on him, making it seem like a ground battle with Earthbind. When he was aligned with the sun, he launched the precast wind spear. It's no surprise to Kangon as to why everyone around the academy is calling Hale a grand mage of the first circle, but despite all his accomplishments, his father doesn't seem too impressed. In his eyes, at the end of the day, it's still just first CIR magic. He tells Kangon to look carefully and points out that even in a favorable position, Hale still can't land a finishing blow. His father is sure that Hale could never be the one to finish the fight, especially since Adela hasn't even used her special magic, the one she's famous for. It seems like it's finally time for her to show him what she's got. The translators messed up the names a bit, and now further Adela will be called Aldea. Don't ask me why. So Aldea, his childhood rival, stands before him, glad that she is finally able to relive the memories of the past by experiencing Hai's growth once more. She honors him for once again reminding her of those memories. So now, With glittering eyes of determination she is prepared to toss everything in her arsenal against him. She is ready to bring the real war of magic power against him thanks to Hai's impressive performance. Hale, who is getting ready to withstand the attack, realizes the state of jeopardy that he's in. It's not going to be easy facing Aldea at her strongest, not with what's coming. The magician illuminates in a wave of blue light as Hai's face shrinks to nervousness and sweat. What's coming his way is the special moon attribute ability, the magnum opus and ultimate secret of the Stewart family, the magic spell known as Halo. A dozen incantation circles hover over Aldea's body as she prepares to release her mighty attack in his direction. It seems like the end for our protagonist, who can sense the sheer weight of the attack as the light penetrates the entire arena. Those witnessing this fight, including the respected 8-star magician Kangon and H's father, they almost certain of the outcome of this match. H's father wants to leave at once, knowing that there's nothing in his son's powers that is capable of defeating or overcoming the Halo moon spell. He bears no interest watching Hai fail before him when the dominating result is already clear, but that's what he thinks, because when they turn to the battlefield for a final look, something shocking happens. Even Conan's secretary gasps at the shocking turnaround of the fight. Conan himself is left baffled, while Suchin can't utter even a single word. Most of all Aldea, the one who casted the ultimate moon spell. She's left completely defenseless by what she's seeing now. For the big reveal, the man himself, the prodigious magician who was deemed unfit for AI magic and its modern advancements, has just casted a brilliant wheel of fire incantation himself, wielding the power of flames in his hands. The confident magician utters Flame Vulcan as his counter to Aldea's ultimate attack. His opponent is shocked to receive a second circle spell used against her. After all, it should have been impossible for Hale to use anything beyond a first circle spell because of the drawbacks of his memorized spell. The confident Hale emphasizes his determination to defeat her. After all, he did take his time to prepare for everything she threw at him. Aldea can't fathom how he used a second circle spell, especially when she considers the drawback of the memorized spell. Logically, there should be no way for him to use this spell, not unless he reached the 5th circle of magic at his age. Hale simply smiles at her without answering. While he hasn't reached the 5th circle he prepared the night before, at the Obelisk Academy's dorms, he was busy sitting there in front of the Book of IDD, waiting to come up with a strategy to bring down Aldea. She wasn't just any opponent he could beat with mere first circle magic. He needed something more powerful and reliable as a weapon. There's also the fact that his fighting style doesn't even align with the nature of secret magic, rendering him more disadvantaged in the upcoming fight. Hale had no choice but to accept the situation for what it was. His original plan was to fight her only when he had mastered some of the secret spells, as that would give him the best chance of victory against Aldea Stewart. As he opens the Book of Eider, he finds the newly written document. Hale wonders if he can master the power of the SE, which requires him to focus his powers into the magic circle of the following pages. Inside the book he discovers an inscribed magic circle which is supposed to act as a teleportation mechanism to the other world. Hale gathers his thoughts and wonders if it's supposed to be some sort of pathway for his improvement. Out of sheer curiosity he extends his fingers and pours some of the light magic energy by drawing his hand on the magic circle. The book starts to illuminate just from underneath his hand before growing into a beam of light that blinds him completely. Hale is a warped island success inside the book. His existence disappears into thin air by the time he's warped inside. When Hale opens his eyes he finds himself in a giant library, the kind you would expect from a great mage, and their infinite wisdom of magic. Puzzled, he turns around and questions just where he's found himself trapped inside. One voice calls out to him, welcoming him to the first page of the first trial. From the corner emerges a woman in a black formal attire and silver hair. She introduces herself as Alpha and is supposed to act as a guide for his first trial. There's so much new information that it confuses Hale for a moment. He doesn't get what the first trial page even means. For starters, Alpha confirms that currently he's facing the page of the first trial as she said once before. It's inside the Book of Eider. Hale has now confirmed for himself that he was really sucked inside the magic circle. It's not the fact that he was teleported to some ancient magic location someplace else in the world, rather he was transported into a subspace, a pocket dimension existing inside the book. Her words are almost ridiculous to believe. For him this very situation is Alpha begins instructing him about the contents of the trial. Hale will be tested on the basis of his CI being realized she intends to provide him all the necessary instructions regarding the trial. If Heil manages to pass this trial, he's going to receive new information in the Book of Eider as his reward. Pages 18 until 31 will be updated and he will be able to learn about the second circle magic. Heil quickly realized that he would have to pass this special exam in order to unlock the next level of his magic powers. Now that Alpha had briefed him about the explanation, she asked if Heil was interested in beginning. He accepted at once, causing Alpha to release her magic and begin the first trial. Alpha's body morphs into a beam of light, leaving Heil completely confused. While he wasn't expecting this girl to be human of all things, he also wasn't expecting her to be an entity sustained by magic. A familiar voice rings in his head. This voice Heil recognizes immediately. It's his teacher's voice, the one who has been aiding him in his magical journey so far. A powerful gem appears before Heil, releasing rays of light and electricity. This special object is the elemental manhwa. At its current state it is considered incomplete and has 4 mana attributes irregularly mixed in place. Heil holds the crystal in his hand and learns about his task. His objective or test is to purify the gem back to its fundamentals. When he first heard that, Heil panicked. The thought of purifying an incomplete mana crystal like this seemed almost impossible. There's a reason he reacted in this manner. The elemental manhwa is supposed to be a fragile gem, which means even the slightest of mistakes could be costly. If one had to purify this gem, they should have careful mana manipulation to shift its contents. Now, since 4 types of mana resided inside this one gem, everything existed in a state of utter chaos. It became a near impossible task to even purify such a thing. Heil questioned how he could even purify an object like this. To give you a comparison of how he feels, Heil demonstrates that it's like asking someone to separate sand, salt, sugar and pepper from a mixture. It's too difficult for someone like him. Ordinarily, if someone was skilled in using the skill heart's intent, they could utilize the skill's capacity to purify the gem. Despite the impossibility of the task staring him in the face, Heil isn't afraid. Instead, he's excited as he grows eager to test his own limitations by taking on this trial. In a flinch, his eyes glimmer with a casting of the special spell called Heart's Intent. The skill kicks into effect, and from an array of mixed mana attributes comes to form 4 columns of separated and purified magic energy. H's concentration deepens on the spell's casting as he draws even a deeper level of focus. At last, the 4 rows of magic attributes are all separated as the crystal becomes perfected. For a moment it was a really tiresome process, but he made a mistake and the impact of the crystal sent him flying to the nearest shelf. Heil sits defeated, looking goofy with a book laying on top of him. He made a critical mistake by flickering his mana and causing a shock wave as a result. This is his teacher's way of instructing him to be careful, as even the smallest mistakes could cost him. It's difficult to separate the mana, especially when it is jumbled against each other in a way that becomes impossible to tear apart. But from his first failed experience, Heil had understood a way to overcome this trial. Something clicked in his head, so now he's prepared to take as many times as possible to overcome the trial. Many more hours passed and Heil still got his tossed by making more mistakes. He was defeated many times by the same attempt to purify it. Despite having so many setbacks, he tried to deepen his level of concentration. The process repeated dozens and hundreds of times. Then at last something happened. The monocrystal reached full purification and completion. Heil stands victorious at last. Now that he's gained control of the elemental manhwa, his teacher voiced the same voice from before comes to congratulate him for overcoming his destined trial as their successor. Heil smiles, feeling proud of his accomplishment now that he's acquired the spell Heart's Intent and has overcome the first trial. The Book of Eider will have its contents updated with new information regarding the second circle of magic. This technique is called the Resonance Ring. Heil woke up in his bed right after completing his trial. He was shocked to return as safely as he got inside. What's more, the book started updating its contents. He was pumped to finally be able to have the chance to learn about the second ring of magic. But things were not over just yet. The prodigious magician still had to master the second spell before his match against Aldea Stewart began. That's what he hoped to achieve, and eventually he did. Now back at the arena of magic, Aldea stares at him. With her prepared moon attribute spell Halo, she releases the sheer weight of her power, crushing Heil and causing concern to his friend Suchin, who thought the battle was as good as over. Now Aldea carelessly and confidently boasted her victory, preparing to leave the battlefield. She was impressed by his sudden growth and strength in a short wave of time. In fact, it has drawn her to learn more about his identity. She once saw him as a prodigious rival, someone who was always one step ahead of her in their childhood. Aldea chased him, But now the prodigy she once knew was no longer there. She thought she had surpassed him then. A beam of light emanates from behind, alerting Aldea to turn back and question what's happening. It was the activation of the second circle of magic, the resonance ring. Heil casted darkness blind against his Vulcan flame and now intended to merge two of his infinity circles into one. Maya's at last. Heil poured the attribute of free will. His incantation shocked both his father and Kengan as well as Suchin and Allah. They all shared one reaction, a state of shock and confusion. It was as if Hail was opening the gates of hell with this final spell. He pointed his finger and commanded Vulcan flame. With what little time Aldea had she tried to activate her defense magic to withstand his power. Heil out here released a Gatling gun and shot Aldea down with a dozen attacks. Even Aldea grew concerned. She knew she couldn't block every single one of his attacks. In her final effort to stand her ground, Aldea smiled the happiest she had ever been. She could finally see Hail taking the center stage as her goal, as her target and her rival. But that's just sentimental dialogue for now, because this man Hail literally unleashed his damn machine gun on her. When the dust settled, Hail stood victorious as Aldea's body fainted onto the ground. The battle had ended, and it was a tiresome victory for even our protagonist, who was forced to recover his exhaustion. The match included in Shin Hei's decisive victory. His father, now that he had witnessed the state of the match, opted to leave at once. The 8-star magician had already seen what he wanted to see. He had other things to take care of. But Kengan observed his reaction and confirmed that H's father is a bad liar and that he's incapable of hiding the pride he felt in his son. At that moment, after the fight ended, an exhausted Heil was dragged into the news. More background on his finishing move is provided. When the second infinity circle combines with the heart's intense circle, it allows magic amplification. Aldea's moon-type magic is a hybrid magic merged with the powers of light magic and dark magic. As one uses adjust the intensity of dark magic, one could manipulate the attack's range as well. Heil survived because he countered her halo spell with enhanced dark magic of his own. The moon-type magic is only special to the Stewart family, so normally magicians can't learn it out of thin air. At the same time, just by observing the magic structure, Hei's sharp adaptability allowed him in recreating mana manipulation. His resonance circle lent him the power to distinguish the moon magic circle thanks to the purification training he learned by refining his mana control the other night. Without that, there wasn't any way to defeat Aldea Stewart in that battle. Heil is blank while the famous Blue Tower Master steps forward to greet him. The youngster is shocked that he came to greet him. Kengan explains that he wanted to personally come and speak with the boy. Kengan shares a meeting with the boy, apologizing for taking his time right when he's most tired and exhausted. After the fight, Kengan shares his enthusiasm and thought Heil came out as an amazing victor of the fight. Heil casually accepts his regards, but that was just a front. Kengan clearly came here with an interest of his own. He asks the burning question that's bothering everybody. Kengan wants to know if Heil has in fact reached the 5th circle, and now the question bothers him at first because initially the magician has nothing to say. Heil recalls that he did in fact use the 2nd circle magic during the match, while at the same time the Blue Tower Master had suspected that he used the Memorize spell. However, using that logic, if he did use Memorize magic, it has a drawback of using magic below 3 spells. This means the only way for him to use a 2nd circle magic spell is if he reached a 5th circle of magic. It has led to the suspicion that he jumped up to the 5th circle level. Heil clarifies that he hasn't reached the 5th circle. Instead of accepting the achievement, he denies it, and for a good reason. Conan excitedly asks how he was able to cast the 2nd circle magic. If that's the case, this is the question that's even more difficult than the last one. Haya tells him that he used vision magic, which is pretty hard to believe by itself. Kengan wonders if he commanded the use of the modification magic that he mentioned in his previous interview with the press. Haol confirms that it is indeed the modification magic. He decides to go with that excuse for the reason behind his powers. For the time being, it's reasonable to deny him reaching the 5th circle for his age. After all, no one has reached such a level at 8 years old. It would really stir the world over, the birth of a generational prodigy. Then if he uses 3rd circle magic eventually, it will cause even greater trouble for him. Heil prefers that he keep the source of his powers a secret for now. Kengan confirms that whatever he uses is really powerful, but he still doesn't get the connection between it and the 2nd circle. of magic that Hyle deployed in his fight against Allah. He stares at him sharply, observing for any inconsistencies in his response. Hale wings his explanation, stating that he merely improved the memorized magic and took away its limitations. Kengan, hearing this, becomes even more excited that he improved upon a spell. He stands up and curiosity walking all the way next to Hyle, making him extremely nervous about what he's about to do. Suddenly the 8-star magician commands use of his ruby eyes for a mere moment before grasping Hai's shoulder. On the outside he expresses his compliments for the youngster to improve a magic spell, but in reality Kengan is staring at him with his blood-red eyes, inspecting every aspect of his magical energy for answers. Hale is momentarily stunned, unable to move, and doesn't know what to do. Kengan, now convinced that Hale isn't lying, confirms that there's no evidence that leads him to believe that he's facing a 5th circle magician, so that means Hale didn't lie to him, which was convenient because Kengan now knows what to say to the reporters outside and control the crowd's uproar to a minimum. The 8-star magician leaves high-winded. He didn't expect the guy to use his red ruby eyes to verify the integrity of his words. Those same eyes are one of a kind, piercing through the essence of mana. The eyes are called the world's best when it comes to detection magic. It's really fortunate that Hale managed to survive the test, but still it was a close call, because it was the Blue Tower Master testing him. His Veter-style magic is his biggest and most prized secret. The Book of Adread is invaluable to him, so he can't splurge and reveal his secret to anyone. The following day Shin Hale seized victory over numerous more battles. After the fight, an unexpected visitor came to see him. It's Aldia, who still hasn't recovered from her injuries and still stands before him. She insists that she's feeling better even though Hale expected her to be down for longer. He asks for what she came here for. Unlike most other people who disappear after the fight and never ask for feedback, Aldia has come here specifically to learn from her failures. She wants to know how she performed and how she could do better. Aldia acknowledges that he's still exhausted and has yet to finish the final match, so she's okay with him explaining later, but our boy pulls a fast one on her and urges that they discuss it at once. He's happy with discussing feedback since it will help both of them improve as magicians. Hearing his response, Aldia's heart flutters. It's no mystery that they've both got to learn much more when it comes to strategizing and magic use. Facing his back, Allah hopes to become someone just like Hyle, as she admires him greatly. As for our boy, he can just sense her strong ambition. From behind the scene cuts to the Shin family's building, where his older siblings are watching the outcome of the match. The headquarters of the Shin group, where the elites of the family lead the path of the mages. Hei's older sister is an angry, jealous and afraid woman who fears the boy's growth. She's so agitated by his recent accomplishments that she requests her brother to take care of him at once. Sia can't wait to bring him down, but unlike her, the calm and collected older brother Jihan is methodical and wants to take things slowly. Si greatly fears Hei's return to the Shin family. She's scared of the thought of accepting him. She just can't accept him after what happened years ago. Ca doesn't want to endure that horrifying treatment again, but her brother Jihan is as cool as a cucumber. He's most certainly confident that they're not up against any threat. It was only a year ago that they believed Hyle would become the best among them, a prodigy with no equal. However, recently things changed. His AI magic incompatibility is the first thing, and the second is that he's nothing more than a newbie who can't use more than 2nd circle magic in real combat. Jihan doesn't view him as any threat and arrogantly mocks the boy's performance in his recent matches. Still, CIA is concerned about how people are fawning over Hai's recent rise and upcoming powers. She's really scared, but Jihan comforts her that they have practically nothing to fear. What their little brother faced at most were just 3rd circle mages at the academy. None of them was even a 4th circle magician. But the problem comes with Hai's inherent flaw: he's still incompatible with modern technology and AI magic, setting him back greatly. No matter his current pace of progress, Jihan believes that the boy will soon run out of options, and that he's merely able to even get past his setback by managing other means such as his new tricks. Jihan is confident that Hyle will soon run out of options, and when compared to the average 4th star magician, he's lagging behind. His present skill is nothing impressive, and not a concern to be worried about. Saya, being the she is, grows confident by Jihan's explanation. She too now thinks that Hale won't be able to manage much, especially since he's a failure of AI magic. In the chance that Hyle does come up and oppose them, interfering in the race to become the next head of the family, Jihan will be more than ready to cut him down, and he's unafraid of doing so, even if it is his brother. As for the state of the tournament, it's not a surprise. That our boy completely owned the competition. He was the last person standing by the end of the finals as the final contestant hits the ground and the referee concludes. The undisputed champion of the second-year midterm Shin Haeol takes the center stage as the strongest magician and makes his name as the return of the prodigy in the magic world. The crowd cheers for his name, signing praises of the family he belongs to. Instead of AI magic being glamorized in the advanced age, it was the forbidden magic of Haeol that had impressed the crowds most of all. His best friend Suchin is there to congratulate him on his amazing victory. He's the first to embrace him, excited that he put in the effort to reverse his bad reputation. No one could rebel against Hai's strength now. There were obviously a bunch of jealous delinquents who thought that Hai was nothing without his forbidden magic. They couldn't stand him using something beyond the capabilities of AI magic. But H didn't pay them any attention like they wanted. His homeroom teacher is also here to congratulate him on his success, feeling proud as ever that he overcame the competition using his magical skills. A flattered Suchin is quick to suggest having a treat to celebrate Hai's amazing victory. His Jigachad teacher confirms that he was already planning to treat those two boys to a good meal. Suchin celebrates loudly while Hail Polly declines this generous request. He wanted to come, but there's another thing bothering him. He's got someone important to meet. After all, Suchin wasn't expecting him to refuse so suddenly. After all, it's like your homie betraying you just when you plan to eat some good food. Hail is insistent on his refusal and apologizes for leaving halfway. The appointment seems to be really important to him, more important than the celebratory treat he was just about to receive. The thing is, Hail intends to upkeep a promise, so his next destination is none other than the headquarters of his family's building, the tower that he expects to lead someday. After becoming the head of the family, when he gets there, the butler and his expensive escort are already anticipating him. The butler officially recognizes the boy as the youngest son of the Shin family of mages. He has come here on behalf of his father, who is waiting to meet the boy soon. The butler escorts him to the main residence. It's night time by the time he arrived at the residence. Before going inside, Hail takes a second to reflect on his past memory. It has been 1 whole year since he stepped inside this same residence. At the time, it was newly discovered that he was completely incompatible with AI magic, leading his father to stop believing in him. He went against his father and ended up switching dorms, but ever since his rebellion, his father exiled him from entering the family home until now, until he became the champion of the tournament and showed his father what he was truly capable of. Hail finally steps inside. Not much has changed from what he's seeing so far. The place is just like his past memories. Staring at his father's study room, anticipation, fear, and a bunch of other emotions build up inside the boy. With his efforts, he has returned to his family's home, and now came the time for him to step inside. His father was sitting there waiting for him and gave Hai permission to come inside. H is finally inside. The first thing he does is lower his head, paying due respect to the head of the family and also his father. Shin tells his youngest son to merely sit down before him. He initiates the conversation by reflecting over the past. Hail was deemed a failure, an incompetent magician, incompatible with AI magic. That's what everyone thought, and no one knew better than his own father. Shin gets up and walks around murmuring over how his casting speed was 20 times even slower than the average mage, and his spells always had issues disappearing and fading away every time he flickered or wavered in his focus. The boy was at the same time incapable of multicasting his magic spells. It was the definition of a complete failure that could not be fixed. His father emphasizes this strongly, that he was the true definition of what it means to be a failure and a no good trash of the family, and yet the people expected highly of his talent. So his father came to a conclusion. He wanted the boy to learn modern and advanced magic called the AI magic. It was his one salvation to redeem himself. At the same time, Shin didn't expect highly of the boy. Even then, he didn't think Hail would come out a success or a prodigy out of the exam. All he believed was that it was the only chance he could get in his cornered situation, an act of desperation for someone stuck. Hearing his father's side, Hail understands what he means and shares no counter-opinion. Shin continues, stating how he read the article that the idiot back had published to defame Hail by means of social media. His father too thought that it would be nice for Hail to come to his senses and stop pursuing magic after facing a powerful loss in the tournament, but that's just what he thought. Because Hail Completely shocked everyone with his performance, he defied his father's expectations, most of all not only by overcoming his weaknesses and incompatible states but also by the brilliant display of his modification magic. His father is more than happy to admit his own loss. He safely handles Heil his victory because he went against everyone and showed them his talent. Hai's father smiles proud in admiration of his son's accomplishments. He admits that his combat performance matched that of a true mage, which is a huge compliment coming from the strongest mage of this era. This bold acknowledgement from his father surprises Heil as he immediately thanks him. His father adds that Heil has earned his family's full support once again, so starting now he is ready to guide the boy in any way possible to nurture his magical talent. Not only that, Heil is granted access to the Shin estate as the rightful successor of their family. His father's powerful speech shakes Hull's emotions. At the same time, he gives his dear son a sharp warning. If he ever senses that Hyun's progress is leading toward stagnation and decline, he will make sure to be the first one to destroy all of his magic circles. It's a bone-chilling warning coming from one's own father, but that's just the kind of man the strongest magician was. He was ruthless in his intimidating warning. Hai's entire body could feel the threatening aura of an 8th circle mage forcing him down. He could feel actual fear, but at the same time the boy acknowledged that it's his only chance to succeed. He confirmed that to his father. On to the next subject. They discussed Hai's immediate goal. At first the boy is puzzled. Shin reminds his son that his boy once wanted to aim for becoming the head of the Shin family, but he's got an entire family line of his siblings like Jihan, Sia, Inuk and me to face before that. In fact, he's the farthest behind when it comes to the race of succession amongst all his siblings. Hei reiterates that his one and only goal is to become the head of the Shin family without fail. He doesn't care if his siblings are in the way or what obstacles he has to overcome, as it must be done in order to achieve his goal. Hull's first objective is to gain his family's acknowledgement. Curious as to how he's going to achieve this goal, his father questions what he plans to do. The boy lays out a note regarding the incoming World Academy Olympia. His objective is to participate in this world-class event where brilliant contestants from all over the world will also come and take part there. The confident Heil intends to show his dominance by returning home with a gold medal. More background on the Olympiad event. It's a special event for mages held once a year for academy students under 20 years of age. It's also called the Mage Olympics. The whole world is attracted to this event and it captures the feeling of watching a professional tournament. H's father has issues with his goal of obtaining the gold medal. Why? Because the country's best record in the Olympiad was a silver medal, and that too was obtained by Kangun, the Blue Tower Lord Prodigy. The fact that Hai's claiming to return with a gold medal is downright impossible and never seen before. Even his father thinks it's a ridiculous claim and clearly unrealistic. Heil counters that he knows about the ridiculousness of his goal, however he came here with that target planned. In fact, Heil asks his father for a condition that until he's participating in the tournament, his siblings don't interfere with him. The immediate threat of the other mages targeting him in his 2 months of practice could lead to trouble. Heil recognizes that and requests his father to stop his siblings from halting his growth. It's quite the overconfident plan after all. Even Shin acknowledges that his son doesn't even know if he'll come home with a gold medal, yet he's asking for protection and favors to safeguard himself. Normally the strongest mage would refuse anyone for that kind of offer, but in this case he thinks otherwise and accepts Hai's condition. The next day, back to his dormitory, Heil is utterly exhausted. Studying all night, he regains consciousness and realizes that he slept when he returned from the family estate. Heil wasted no time and started looking for requirements of the second trial in the Book of Eider. He did pass the first test by purifying the mana crystal after hours of training and setbacks, but to obtain the third circle he has to clear the second test, which is a real problem right now. He's got nothing to him and he's lost his only clue to find the second trial is the resonance spell. Heil suspects that he has to nurture his resonance spell equal to the level of consonance. It means he has to achieve full mastery of the second circle before he can undergo the trial for the third circle. In order to accomplish this, he has to touch the book and utilize his mana utilizing the principles of consonant. He does that, but so far the only clue he's received is that the Ring of Judgment is required as well as the Ring of Resonance. With some tinkering, Heil manages to create 2 infinity loops, one in red and the other in blue. They disappear quickly, which means he failed. Heil decides to take a break and go for a walk because clearly sitting around isn't doing him any good. He hits the road underneath the beautiful blue sky. Heil enjoys the cityscape and thinks that he should go on walks more often to clear his head. He's enjoying the fresh air and embracing the pleasantness of the environment, thinking about what he should have for breakfast before resuming his training again. Suddenly a voice calls out to him as an object quickly approaches his face. Shin Hale was just minding his own business, taking a casual stroll to think, and a damn plastic bag ruined it. He fell on his ass, surprised at the unexpected assault courtesy of a worried lady. When he looked up, his nose feeling sore, Hale was taken aback. The culprit was none other than Aldea, and so the two decided to take their supposedly separate walks together. Hale was hit by the stray plastic bag since the young lady was spinning around in joy with a bag full of banana milk in hand, and then it flew away. And an unwitting victim, she hurriedly apologized for being so careless and embarrassed by such a silly incident. It wasn't that big of a deal for Hale though, at least he got a free banana milk drink for it. You see, Aldea is a banana milk fiend. She thinks it's the best drink ever invented by humanity. With a more relaxed atmosphere they continued mindlessly walking around side by side. She asked him how his visit with his family went, and he smiled. Aldea curiously inquired if he still dreamed of becoming the head of the Shin family's magic tower. He was surprised by the question. He couldn't even remember yapping about it to Aldea when they were kids. In fact, they talked about his dreams a lot, and she remembered those conversations very fondly. Hale confessed that it was not his dream anymore. Trying to be nice, she assumed that he must have compromised with reality, considering that the Shin family has many prominent succession candidates. She knows how tough it is to stand at the top, but she must have misunderstood him. Hai's dream has gotten a lot bigger than just being the next family head. Now he wants to become the master of magic, an entity that will stand at the pinnacle of all mages. He wants to lead all of the magic towers in existence. To say that Aldea was surprised by such a bold dream was an understatement. It's an incredibly lofty goal, something beyond even her imagination. Nevertheless, it's vindicating to know that she's chasing a rival that's gunning for the top of the world. That night at the Magic Tower residence of the Shin family, tensions were high. Shinya was genuinely tweaking in her seat. She can't stand all the waiting and standing around. Sia confronted Shin Jian about whether he was even worried about the recent developments. While Jihan looks calm on the surface, his mind is racing at the thought of his father's condition. Earlier that night the problematic brother and sister were called on to the patriarch's study. Shin and Hook did not mince his words. He knows his children's personalities very well, so he wanted the two to listen to his command. Jihan and Seiya were forbidden from interfering with Hale in any way, shape or form. For the next 2 months the two were not expecting such a heavy-handed restriction. Seiya almost had an outburst, but before she could protest her father's decision, Jihan stepped up to stop her. Jihan remained composed and calmly asked what their father's reasoning was. Inhu is aware that the two already know of Hai's official return to the Magic Tower yesterday. The patriarch cited that since the family's youngest is still a minor and had to undergo a gap year away from the family, he thought it necessary to give poor Hale 2 months to readjust to the family. Inhu singled out Jihan and Seiya since they are the type to keep a close eye on their competition for the family's headship. Jihan did a good job hiding his disdain and dissatisfaction. He even eked out a phony smile as he accepted his father's orders. With that, Shin Inh Hook sent his kids away to rest for the night. A few hours later the two racked their brains in crisis mode. Seiya thought that Jihan was way too unbothered by this development, but she could not be any more wrong. Shin Jihan is not the type of person that would accept such a constraint, since their other siblings Minuk and Ji aren't too interested in playing hard for the head position. Jihan understands why it's only him and Sa who were warned, but he can't just accept his father's reasoning. He knows that the excuse to leave Hale alone because of a 1-year gap is BS. Their hard ass of a father would have told his children to endure the torment from their siblings. He would be the first one to view the gap year as a lack of qualification as an heir. Besides, protecting the young only applies until age 16. Before the AI imprinting process, Hei is already 17 and he shouldn't be treated like a child to be protected anymore. So Jihan's mind is racing as to what their father's reasoning really is. Seiya thought that the worst case scenario might already be in play and Hei has been reinstated as heir, but Jihan can't see that possibility, at least not right now. Hale hasn't shown their father nearly enough to sway the strict patriarch. The most reasonable explanation would be that their dad saw some sparks of Potential in their youngest again. Maybe dad is just interested in the mysterious magic system that Heil concocted. Maybe the two made a deal with each other. Thinking about what kind of deal could by their dad's good graces Shinsa started crashing out. There must be a reason why their father is acting unusually. She reckoned that they should probably call back the spies they had assigned to follow their little brother just to be safe. Or maybe they shouldn't pull out if their spies can evade the shadows. You see, the shadows is Shin Inuk's direct intelligence unit. They act as a secret force of the Magic Tower. It's an elite team of experts in infiltration, information gathering, escort missions, and every dirty work you can think of. Gon can't risk it. He had already withdrawn his personal surveillance team assigned to Hale, while the Crash-Out siblings are still unclear as to what their next move will be. Shinji Han excused himself. Doing nothing for 2 whole months does not sit right with him. If his little bro really made some sort of deal with their father, he needs to take drastic measures. Even though it's quite risky, he decided to insult the Black Tower. Back in the Obelisk Academy, classes have restarted in full swing. H's professor congratulated the whole class for doing reasonably well in the midterm evaluations. He even singled out the young man who brought the honor to their class by winning the tournament. Shin Hai stood up and accepted his classmates' applause among all 17-year-olds. In the country, he can easily be considered to be the best. Since he's at the forefront of the current batch, he might as well hold that spot for 2 more months and aim for the Academy Olympiad. That is precisely what he intends to do. Of course, one man's success will garner tons of jealousy from the unremarkable crowd. Some dumb asses are murmuring about how he only won by using an inferior vision magic instead of AI. They are praying for his downfall in the coming days, believing that an AI misfit will always hit a wall. Shin Hale could not give less of a about their opinions, though he's on his way to the top and nobody can stop him. After classes, Suchin complained that 8 straight periods of theory lectures were simply inhuman, but at least they will be doing practical training tomorrow. Hay playfully reminded his buddy to get some proper exercise before that. You see, Suchin might be a decent mage, but he's piss weak physically. He wanted to retort, but he couldn't even use the weak mage insult against Heil now. If he really wants to, they can always work out together for a change. Sunan vowed to overcome Ha once more, but when invited to hit the training room after dinner, he immediately coiled back. He has a lot of potential, but Sunshine could not be bothered with extra work, claiming that he's in too bad of a shape to train. But honestly, he does not hate exercising. What he specifically hates is exercising with Hale. He just finds his buddy way too scary when he's in the zone. When he hits the Obelisk Academy's physical training room, people look at Hale differently, which makes sense in a place where mages who rely on mana to fight gather. Shin Hale is the only real GY rat psycho. He regularly squats inhuman amounts of weights, intimidating the regular mage crowd. Today was different though. Some people recognized his face as the sophomore who won first place in the midterms. After finishing his reps, Heil hydrated and wiped his sweat down. He's been focusing on mastering the biter style magic so much that his physical training is lagging behind. That's not a good thing. Even in the book of IDD it is written that the infinity circle must flow throughout the entire body. Interacting with physical training, a strong body and a strong mind create perfect synergy and improve his circle efficiency. He can't afford to slack off. He needs to master both physical training and magic. With those two things in an optimally balanced state, his progress should undoubtedly skyrocket. After the weight room, Hai's next stop was the practical training facility. He stood in the middle of the arena as 3 monstrous black panthers circled around him, moving in unison. The beasts attack from 3 different angles all at once. He didn't even have to use magic to evade, just pure reflexes and optimized movement. To retaliate, he instantly cast a wind spell to stab one of the panthers out of existence. As the simulated beast disintegrated, the other 2 seized the chance to push forward. The stupid computer-generated cats bumped their heads against one another as Hai docked their lunge. While they were dazed by their own uncoordinated attempt, Heil conjured a flame Vulcan in his hand. His finger gun held more destructive power than an actual firearm, destructive enough to delete another panther in one shot. 2 down, 1 more black panther to go. In a one-on-one scenario, the crafty Shin Hai is practically invincible. With one last flame Vulcan, the monster rush practical training has been completed. His performance received full marks for A perfect clear. He was just happy to be back on top thanks to the infinity circle. His physical abilities seem to have passively increased by approximately 1.5 times. When he reaches the third circle it will surely improve even more, which means he needs to work harder to enhance his infinity circle. Finding a quiet corner to do some important mental calculations, Heil increased his focus. He called his ring of will and ring of resonance at the same time. He then started to circulate both types of mana throughout his entire body, carefully assessing the minuscule changes. He adjusted the vibration frequency and rotation rate of each ring by 12.25% and 4.63% respectively. Afterward he increased the ring of will's mana purity by 8.9%, just a little more, and he will be able to achieve perfect alignment. But as he is right now, it's still practically unattainable. He had long since reached a 99% synchronicity rate, but no matter how many hundreds of times he tried, that last 1% just won't budge. But he did not let that discourage him. He's determined to achieve a perfect sync rate and achieve circle master level. That same evening he was suited up for a late night jog. He had his AirPods on and the evening breeze grazed his skin. It was a perfectly chill run to catch up on cardio training until a hooded figure showed itself from some random dark corner. As soon as Heil got close, a fist came flying straight for his face. Thankfully he was fast enough to reflexively dodged to the side by a hair's breadth. He confronted the hooded figure, demanding to know who was underneath. The bastard wore a mask, but those hateful eyes were so easily recognizable. It was that good Forno Beck Sahu. Dodging the second punch was child's for Hale. 2 punches in and the dumbass was already sweating, calling Hale a rat for evading. Meanwhile our boy was more bothered by his AirPods falling off. It's the weekend and he's being bothered by this bastard. He smugly called Sock out for not even being able to go back home on the weekends after bringing disgrace to his family. Even if he wanted to go home, the Bake family must have put him under probation. He used his family's power to generate a buzz with that article, and he was humiliated in front of the whole world. Even if he wasn't on probation, he's probably too embarrassed to show his face back home after losing by being drowned in front of a roaring crowd. Sack doesn't have anywhere to go now. He camped in this dark alley to exact his revenge, and he's being trash talked to high heavens instead. Nevertheless, Hale did not expect that the bastard would actually dare to conjure fire and use magic in the street. Sahak was tunnel visioned on revenge that he's blatantly ignoring school policy. Hale locked in. It would be dangerous to get nicked by a fire punch. Thankfully Sahak was a dumbass with no hand-to-hand combat training, making it easy to neutralize him with just a few simple moves. All Heil had to do was grab him by the shoulder and sweep one of his feet off the ground. It was yet another humiliating loss for the thoughtless cretin. Hale pinned him down to the ground as he threw a childish tantrum to be let go. On second thought, this late-night jog interruption is also an opportunity for Hale. A few minutes later the authorities arrived and Hale handed the stupid criminal over without a fuss. Even while being escorted to be interrogated, Sock kept on spitting hateful threats even though he had failed time and time again. Hale gave his statement about how he had to suppress the bastard after being attacked with magic. Everything should be captured by the CCTV nearby. The dumbass did not even account for the location of the camera when he attacked. The authorities promised to coordinate with the academy to go over the details of the attack tomorrow, and Hai was cleared to go back to his dorm. The spoiled brat was still giving those poor officers a hard time even though he's clearly on the wrong. Hai dared Byuk to pull something like this again in the future, and our boy will not hold back again. The very next day news of the incident from last night circulated around campus. A detention announcement was posted on the academy's bulletin board to inform everyone of what happened and how the bastard dared to use magic on the streets. What everyone found odd was his punishment. Beck Sok was only given 10 demerit points for endangering public order when his crime should be grounds for expulsion, but H had already expected this much to happen. The Beck family must have moved for an immediate intervention with their fortune. They are a rising new family that has been donating enormous sums to the academy for a title. After all the academy can't afford to lose that cash freely flowing in, so they could not give Sahak a severe punishment. But at least that dumbass should be getting a beating by his family by now, right? Nope. The only thing he received was a heavy reprimand through a phone call. When it came to his father, Beck Sahak did not dare show any signs of disrespect. While daddy sends the academy some hush money, he orders his son to stay quiet until graduation. The Beck family patriarch is fuming. Having a dog for a son really is a great man's downfall. If their Family didn't get a title to hemorrhage in cash. It would be his good-for-nothing son's fault. After the phone call where he had to constantly apologize for up, Baek Sok did not even learn his lesson. He tossed his phone away out of anger and blamed Shin Hai for getting him in trouble when he's the incompetent bastard who can't even do revenge the right way. His anger towards that misfit has reached a boiling point since the fool can't even take accountability for his ineptitude. He stomped on his phone, deluding himself that it was all Hawk's fault. Suddenly Professor Smith sneaked up behind with a phony smile, seemingly interested in Sak's grudge against the rising star. Sahak was way too incensed to listen to reason, but the professor didn't come here to criticize him. On the contrary, he encouraged his students to stay true to their heart even if it's filled with hate. Then he proposed an idea. If Sak really wanted to get revenge on that pesky Shin Hail, even the dumbass was surprised that a professor would even say something like that. Unbeknownst to him, Professor Smith's rotten mana was already eagerly spilling out like a devil tempting a victim. Back in his dorm room, Hale contemplated whether he should protest the incident to the academy, but he had already gained enough from it. Without doing much, he received an email from his father stating that he finished negotiating with the Baek family in exchange for keeping the incident quiet. The Shin family received 3% of the mining rights that the Baek family holds. Shin In-hook praised his son for handling the incident well and promised to give him rewards for bringing a huge influx of cash to the family. In order for the Baek family to secure a title, they can't just focus on the academy, they also need to maintain good relations with prestigious families like the Shins. In this case, they had to take extraordinary measures to avoid burning bridges. It was costly, but it was their only right move. The victim of the incident was none other than a direct descendant of the Shin family. After all, while it is imperative for the Baek family to resolve this mess in a low-key manner, conceding a chunk of their business must have hurt their pockets. This really emphasizes how important a title is for a family. You see, a title is the ultimate symbol of a clan status. Some examples are the mage title of the mage family and the mystic title of the mystic family. An official title sets a family apart from everyone else. Baek Sak is essentially tossed away by his family for jeopardizing their chance to secure one without his family's backing, and with his poultry skills, Sok is basically done for. Now that official business has concluded, Hale can finally go back to focusing on improving his cultivation techniques. The very next day he noticed a lot more security personnel stationed all around the academy. He reckoned that security must have been heightened to prevent another Baek Sok incident from happening. While his eyes were scanning the campus, Hale was called on by Professor Smith. The sketchy bastard still has that unreadable smug look on his face. Behind those eyes is a concealed prejudice for Hale. Professor Smith acknowledged to have noticed that Mr. Shin Hale seems to really dislike him for a while now. Hale did not even bother denying that he did. The sketchy professor claimed that the dislike is understandable. He said some harsh things to Hai in the past, after all, but he insisted that all those things were just sincere advice for improvement, not something to be misunderstood. Hale immediately found this conversation sussy. Professor Smith extended his hand and proposed that they start over from now on. Just as the young man was about to shake the professor's hand, he paused. He felt a repulsive tinge of dark magic that shook him to his core. The professor's devilish smile made his skin crawl as the bastard congratulated him for placing first in the midterm exam. The suffocating mana around Professor Smith did not match his encouraging words at all. Thanks to Hai's enhanced magical sense, he can see through the lies based on the aura surrounding the professor. That ominous black mana is commonly wielded by the images of the Black Tower. Shaking that hand is a big no-no. You see, the Black Tower is an enigmatic entity in the world of magic. Unlike the 12 existing colored towers, it's an unofficial bastion that follows a different path than the rest. It is comprised of a bunch of degenerate criminals established by a magician called the Black Magician King. Right now Hale is in front of a professor affiliated with that vile organization. This opens up the possibility that there could be other magicians from the Black Tower roaming around Obelisk Academy. It's terrifying to think about how they managed to get in and why they are in the academy in the first place. Regardless of the reason, Hale needs to be careful in his approach. In this scenario, he focused his mana on his eyes to observe the magic around the professor closer. First, he needs to understand the magic formula and assess the situation. As soon as he analyzed the magic surrounding the two of them, a complicated spell opened before his eyes. Hale couldn't help but feel as though he had seen something like this before. There's no doubt about it, it's the formula for mind control magic, with his brain resistant to any external interference. He should be immune to mind control spells, so the threat in front of him is not as high as he was expecting. Thanks to that, he'll probably survive whatever the professor is plotting, since the Black Tower has not figured out his immunity. He even has the upper hand for now. His smartest move is to pretend to be affected by the spell. With that, he can extract information about the Black Tower. As soon as the professor thought that Hale had fallen under his control, his phony smile evaporated. He finally showed his true colors. He still views Shin Hale as a disabled fool who can't even use an AI chip. He felt disgusting, even if his apology was fake. Now it's time to plant the orders on the supposedly mind-controlled student. He handed him a black microchip and ordered Hyle to always carry it at all times, without questioning why. Hyle was delivering the acting performance of a lifetime with his listless eyes, but the professor wasn't done yet. He demanded to know the secret behind Hull's mutation magic. That's where the young man draws the line. He can't possibly spill his most guarded secret, so he feigned a head-splitting headache. The professor reckoned that his unconscious desire to protect the secret of his magic must be too strong, afraid of overdoing it and making his plan known to everyone else. Professor Smith withdrew the question. Mind control magic interferes with the target's brain, amplifying emotions or controlling them as intended. If a high-level magic circle user from the Black Tower uses this spell, it can even cause a total collapse of the target's mind. It has long since been outlawed and forbidden for the danger it poses. In some cases, the target of the spell has way too strong of a willpower regarding specific memories, so trying to forcefully extract those can cause a mind break. Seeing how easily the professor gave up, it seems like Hai's mutation magic is not the main target. Nevertheless, it frustrated the professor to back down. He reckons that such powerful vision magic is wasted in the hands of an AI misfit, but he has a mission to complete. For now, he'll concede, but as soon as the mission is over, he plans to take that juicy vision magic for himself by force. Finally, the professor withdrew the spell and Hyle acted his ass out to seem as though he just snapped out of a daydream. The professor told him that he just spaced out in the middle of the conversation and made his exit, thoughtfully urging his student to get some rest. Hyle can finally breathe. It seems like his acting skills were effective enough, but the hatred he has for the professor just multiplied by a million. After classes had concluded, Hale silently walked around the campus while his mind was racing for his next move. After finding a suitable place to sit, he inspected the microchip that the devilish professor handed him. He identified it as an innovation leveling chip, an illegal chip banned from any use. Handing him such a hot potato made the professor's goal clear. The Black Tower is trying to frame him as an illegal AI user. He can already imagine the headlines if he's found to be in possession of a black market chip. After his midterm performance, his image would be down to the pits with no hope of recovery. Thinking about it, the professor doesn't have any real reason to ruin Hyle this far. While things between them are bad, that bastard won't go this far for personal reasons. Someone must have made a deliberate request to the Black Tower. If that's the case, Hale can roughly estimate the scale of this situation. This plan is too big a mess for someone in seclusion, so that rules out that dumbass by Sahak. It is highly likely that the culprit is one of Hayes' siblings. His brother or sister must be ignoring daddy's orders. Those cutthroat monsters are trying to tarnish his image to completely exclude him from the succession race. That narrows it down to 4 people with a clear motive. First, his older sister Minnie is not particularly interested in inheriting the head status. Besides, she's not the type of person to pull something as shameless as this. As for his older brother Minak, while he is actively involved in the succession race, he does not have the balls to pull off something so dark and bold. That leaves those 2 problematic, Shirna and Shin Jian, as prime suspects. It could be one of those 2, or they could be working together. Hai considered capturing Professor Smith to interrogate for confirmation, but he quickly abandoned the idea. The Black Tower is very sensitive about information. Smith might not even know who the contractor is. Upon capture, it's likely that the tower would just cut him off to die on his own, and right now showing his hand and getting caught by the Black Tower would be incredibly bad. So Ha reckoned that he should involve another magic tower in this mess. The Blue Tower, to be specific. Kim Kangon, the master of the Blue Tower, accepted the young man to his office, but now does not seem to be the best time to ask for a favor, as his cheerful smile is nowhere to be seen. There's a frustrated look in his eyes. Instead, Hyle took note of his colder than usual demeanor as he entered the office, but he has no other choice. He has to cut a deal right here and right now. It looks like Kim Kang-gon has no time to deal with useless stuff right now. Hai reckoned that he must be researching something troublesome to be on edge like this. When asked what was nagging in his mind, Kang-gon answered that he was studying a rather unusual magic stone and it was taking more than he initially expected. Hayo looked at the Tower Master's desk and saw a familiar stone. It was an elemental manhwa. It seems like an extremely rare opportunity just showed itself since they both have busy schedules. Kim Kang-gon asked the young man to get straight to the point of his visit. He accommodated Hale because the rising star asked to share something so important that it could not wait and needed to be discussed in person. Seeing as the Tower Masters getting too agitated, Hale worries that Kang-gon might not even listen to anything he says, so before he discussed the main point of the meeting, he wanted to share something that might help with that troublesome research. As soon as he mentioned the name of the elemental manhwa, the Tower Master was taken aback. He lets out a little bit of hostile aura as he pressed Hyle how he knows about the existence of something that has never been revealed to the public. Kim Kang-gon warned him to choose his next words wisely. A little freaked out, Hyle assured Kong that he did not plant a spy in the Blue Tower or steal any information. He reached for something in his bag to prove that the reason he knew about the manhwa was simple. Hyle pulled out his own stone and showed it to the Tower Master. Kim Kang-gon stood up in surprise. He could not believe his eyes. In the young man's hand was not a simple elemental mana light but a perfectly unlocked and crafted one. Kang-gon asked if he crafted it himself and Hyle confidently confirmed from the Tower Master's perspective. Hearing that was absolutely ridiculous. The top-tier mage engineer of the Red Tower, James Pillar, known as the world's best in magical or crafting, can't even do that. The elite crafters of Blue Tower, who are famous for their craftsmanship, and even Kim Kang-gon himself, who ranks among the top 3 in the world, are scratching their heads trying to research the elemental manhwa, and yet an ordinary high school student managed to do it. He asked if Hyle came upon the stone just by chance, and he admitted that he did. Furthermore, he figured that the Blue Tower was the only place that could handle such an intricate piece, so he brought it along. When asked how he obtained the magic stone, Hale refused to elaborate. He claimed that he was just lucky to obtain it by chance and he was fortunate enough to craft it himself. Kim Kang-gon's mood immediately brightened as he praised the young man's incredible luck. He stopped prodding any further as he acknowledged that mages have the right to keep their secrets if they want to. Hyle sighed in relief knowing that the Tower Master wouldn't press any further. Kang-gon asked to take a closer look at his manhwa and Hyle obliged. As far as he knows, this is the only magic stone in existence that contains all 4 elements simultaneously. Kang-gon carefully handed it back to the young man and asked what he wanted to do with the mana light. Hai answered that he wanted to use it to craft an artifact. As for what kind of artifact he's aiming for, he has plenty of choices to choose from. He can make some sort of protective clothing, a useful decorative piece, or even a formidable weapon. Considering his current arsenal, Hale only needs something that can enhance elemental magic efficiency. Any form will do, but high-quality magic stones like the manhwa require equally high-quality materials as well, not to mention the astronomical crafting fee. But then Kim Kang-gon remembered that Hale is from the direct line of the Shin family. The crafting fee can easily be covered by his clan, but Hale does not want that. He intends to keep this manhwa business on the low. This artifact project must remain a secret from his family and anyone else. While Kim Kang-gon praised the young man for his slyness, the payment would come up to about 9 figures in cash. He doubts that a high school student can cover that much without the Shin family's help. Hyle smiled and responded that he intended to pay through another method. He offered to unlock and craft the elemental mana light in the Tower Master's desk. Kim Kang-gon's eyes glimmered at the thought of obtaining such a valuable crafting method. He immediately accepted the deal. The value of that method alone will be more than enough to cover the materials and crafting fee to turn the stone into an artifact. The Tower Master even offered something extra. To be fair, that's HSCU to ask for the main thing he came here for. Finally, they can discuss today's main topic. Hyle pulled out the black microchip and handed it to Kion. He identified it as an innovation leveling chip, an outlawed piece of tech that's not easy to obtain at all. Hai revealed that a mage from the Black Tower, posing as a professor in the academy, handed it to him. He needs Blue Tower influence and power to deal with the Black Tower mages hiding at Obelisk Academy. The two discussed their next course of action until the sun set and the moon shone. Afterward, Hale was escorted back to the dorms by a Blue Tower representative. He thanked the representative for driving him home and she assured him that they'll meet again soon. Finally, after a long day, Hale cleaned up and crashed into his bed. He got extremely lucky with that elemental manite business. He did not expect to get such a good deal without any trouble. Thanks to that, he can keep the Manly's existence a secret from his father and still score a valuable crafted artifact for free. He came to Kim Kangan's office with the original plan of striking a deal using the 3% share of mining rights from the Bike family. Now he can hold that card a little bit longer for something else. Slowly his eyes finally gave in and the young man drifted into dreamland. Earlier, Kim Kangan found it quite hard to believe that Black Tower managed to infiltrate the strict security of Obelisk Academy. Those dark mages are really tricky to deal with. Moreover, the only evidence they have to prove it right now is the illegal chip. Normally Blue Tower would not act just based on a single student's suspicions and unreliable information, but the Tower Master is willing to trust Hai's words and make some moves. Since he's in a good mood, he is prepared to take some risks.